You want to tell everybody how much you love me or anything like that? One of our friends, a restaurateur by the name of Joe Vicari, had met Deborah from many, many years ago, and she was in the restaurant with some of her friends one night, and he asked her who she was dating, and she said, nobody. There's nobody for me. And a couple nights later, I was in the restaurant complaining that there was nobody nice to date, and at that point he fixed us up and we went out, 4 or 5 days later.
I remember asking Joe, who am I meeting? What is his name? And he sent me his name on a text. And I circled Woodward at least 3 or 4 times before I pulled into Joe Muir's because I thought, I can't do this. But I did, and Joe scooped me up at the door, and the next thing I knew, they sat me down, and then Jeff walked over.
Oh, my first impression, I saw her come in the door because I'd seen a picture of her ahead of time. And the way she, what lack of a better word is saying, the way she strutted in the door, I knew that she wasn't going to take any SHIT from anybody. And that was my kind of woman. And I was instantly, not in love, but I was instantly in high like at that point that I needed somebody that was really not going to take anything from anybody else, including me.
He walked over and he introduced himself, and he seemed like just a really nice guy. And so then I started to watch him through the evening, and then Joe asked us if we wanted to go see a concert that evening. And I thought, you know what, I think I want to see a little bit more about him. And we went to the concert that evening, and I watched him. As the concert went on, I don't know if he really knew I was kind of watching him. And when I watched him, I realized that he had a lot of qualities I was looking for. He had a serious side, and he had a really good side. And that was really important to me. And I wanted somebody that had lived a lot of things in their life like I did, that they knew, nobody ever took care of them. They knew how to have to take care of themselves. And that was important to me. And I saw those qualities in him that night.
On the way home, I was in the back seat because our friend was driving, and Deb and I were in the back seat. And she was talking about her life. And I fell in complete like with her at that time. I wanted to spend more time with her. I wanted to spend time with somebody that could actually talk so honestly about their life, and there was no rose-colored glasses put on or anything else. It was, the good, the bad, and the ugly about what had gone on in her life. And that's what I was looking for. She's obviously beautiful, but I was more impressed with her honesty and the way that she acted.
At the end of the night, he asked me for my number, and I thought, you know what? I think I will give him my number, which, would not have happened normally. And by the next morning, he was texting me, asking me out for dinner, and I was really kind of surprised. He took me to Oakland Hills, and we had this really, really nice time. I think we must have talked 3 or 4 hours. We sat on the golf course. It was a beautiful summer evening. I think I knew at that point that I think I wanted to spend more time with him.
We were on our 3rd or 4th date, depending on what you want to call it. And it was kind of funny because we went to the DAC for dinner where I got free food. I always liked the idea that she had to pay because it's her club, so I couldn't pay. And I think she saw a funny side of me then because I could make some fun about the woman having to pay. But we went over to the Whitney right afterwards. And we went up to the bar upstairs, and we were having a drink. We were sitting on a couch, and I got up to get some wine or do something. And when I sat back down, the couch, because it's old and ugly actually, but when I sat down, she doesn't weigh anything, so the couch made her lean into me. And I always thought, okay, she leaned into me, and I kissed her. And because I certainly wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for that. And I thought that she had leaned in. And, literally months later, I realized when we talked about it, I said, well, no, you leaned into me and I kissed you. And she said, I didn't lean into you. And we've sat on the couch again, And it was obvious that when I sat on the couch, she just kind of leaned in because the couch was weak in the springs. But I probably wouldn't have kissed her that night. And that is, that's where I asked her to marry me. And so that's kind of like our couch now. So anyway, that was that.
I didn't expect it at all, although I didn't know I fell on top of him when he sat down, but he's like twice my size, and this 80s couch that has no springs in it, I just popped and fell onto him, and I think he thought that I was making moves on him.
Not moves, but you were cuddling a little bit. And
it was bad springs, and
thank God for the bad springs. We may not have kissed for 10 days.
And maybe the ghosts in the Whitney.
Yeah,
I think it's the ghosts in the Whitney. But so I fell towards him, and the next thing I knew, he kissed me, and
you kissed me back.
Thing.
You kissed me back.
It wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing, and that became kind of a really special place for us.
After the 18th, we definitely saw each other every night, except for if one of us was out of town. And so, yeah, if you fast forward, every week you have 7 days that you're going out all the time. And we're talking about, we go out to dinner at 6 or 7 o'clock and we're done at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, closing the place down. It's like, no matter where we go, we're always the last to leave. It's like they're kicking us out.
It's worse than that. I mean, we've sat on his deck, and I think sometimes it's been till 5 in the morning, just hanging around talking, and the next thing you know, I'm running across the street just so I can get to work the next day.
It's great because we have 45 years of things to catch up on. And so we always had something to talk about. It was always hanging on every word she was talking about what has gone on in her life, what is done in her life. And so, that's an advantage maybe we have of 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds. It's a lot of life experiences, and we have a lot of life experiences that are shared that we did many of the same things, just maybe a different way.
We've just had so many great times together.
We spent almost every night together as far as going out to dinner and, having a date. It was amazing that the more I spent time with her, the more I wanted to. And so, actually, we didn't go on our first trip until after we were engaged. I knew about it ahead of time. And I knew a month in that I said, just reserve this time in case we're still together. We can go on this trip together. And so I wanted her to reserve. I didn't want her to have other plans during that time. And because I think we both weren't ready to go on a trip like that. But the trip was after we got engaged, and it was great. It was interesting because it was, we did spend a lot of time together, and that was another learning experience. But we went to, every restaurant in town you could possibly imagine. Dressed up, not dressed up. We had, every night was better than the previous night.
We're almost the same age. You're 8 months older than me, which is kind of a cool thing because I'm not dating somebody ultra older or younger that your thought process is so much different. We graduated the same year. It's kind of funny. We like the same stuff. We went through the same time era. Our kids are the same age. We're not going to have any more kids, so I think the kids are happy, I think. I don't think they want any little brothers and sisters.
No, they definitely don't. And it's funny because when I met with Joe the night that I saw him there before we went out, and I said, I don't understand. I want somebody that has a 5 in front of their number. I want somebody that's in their 50s, even though she looks 30.
Still working.
And I wanted somebody that was a business owner so I could relate to as a business owner myself. And I certainly wanted somebody as a Republican. And so we have things in common because that's what and I wanted somebody that was at a point in their life that they didn't have any younger kids. And not that I have anything against younger kids, I love my grandkids, but I was done raising kids and I wanted to enjoy my life, and I wanted to have somebody to enjoy my life with, which is what we do every day. We enjoy our life every day. And I always tell her that I just want one more day with her. Every day when I go to sleep, I just want to wake up and have one more day.
You didn't realize you were going to be having some dog children, though. I never would admit about the dogs. He didn't even know about he heard them barking behind a door, but I needed to know that he loved dogs because they're my small children, and it was important to me that all of my dogs and all of my dogs I rescued had a good father.
The first question she ever asked me when we were out the first night, we were at James Taylor sitting there, and we had the guy that introduced us, Joe and Rosalie, were sitting next to us, and the first thing she asked me, well, how do you feel about dogs? Well, I had a dog before that had recently died, so the dogs weren't a problem, but she didn't tell me that she had 6 dogs. And I didn't even meet the dogs until 2 or 3 weeks after we were engaged. And so I knew she had dogs, and I'd been over to her house several times, but they were behind the door, and you could hear them bark, and it was always a big game that, are there 2 dogs there or 10? Because I knew there was multiple dogs. There was at least 4, but it was a while before I got to meet the dogs. But the dogs are great. The dogs love me.
They're those little ones, and they're my little children now. So it was important that I had somebody that would feel the same way, because they weren't going anywhere, and I needed somebody that would feel like they wanted to care for them as well.
So the one question I'd like to know is, when did you know I was the one? You want to try again?
No, I'm fine. I knew, actually, very early on, I knew the night that I met you that you were different, and I remember giving you my phone number, which, was different for me. And I knew when I met you after the concert, we spent the evening together, and we had to drive back and forth. And we had some time to talk, and I was able to watch you at the concert, and I realized that there was a really quality person, that the qualities I was looking for. And so I remember getting home, and my girlfriends were all wondering, hey, how'd it go? And I remember texting all my girlfriends saying, he's the most amazing man ever, and I had such a good time, and I can't wait to see him again. And that's something new. And each day got just a little bit better, and I think every time we saw each other, I think we had just a little bit more fun, and it just got a little bit better, and it just continued to get that way.
I knew I was in trouble when she walked in the door, and as I said before, she strutted across the floor, and I knew that was a very strong woman that I was going to be, I was already very attracted to, just by, not because of her looks, but because of her command of the area. And I remember that when I picked her up for our second date, when we went to Oakland Hills, she was in the passenger seat of my car. And I remember looking at the corner, right after I picked her up, we turned the corner, and we were at a stoplight, and I looked over and I said, she fits really well in that seat. And I could picture her 20 years from now, sitting right there next to me. And at that point, I knew that my attraction to her was something way more than the physical attraction that I'd already felt. But the mental attraction for her was already way beyond on that. And I think you always fast forward and you hope that somebody is going to be in your life forever. And at that point, that's what I hoped for. I had her convinced over the prior weeks that we were going on a company business dinner. And the people we were meeting were Japanese. And so I had her convinced that she needed to wear red because that's my favorite color. And she needed to wear something that I had given her because we weren't married. And so I wanted her to wear her pearls, the pearls that I had given her. And so we were talking about where we were going, and we set it all up as far as where we're going to go. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when I was starting to get ready for this, I started to film myself, and I started to drink some Johnny Walker very early. And I was nervous. Actually, I was beyond nervous because, even though I knew she would say yes, there was that 1% that she would say no. And so when I would talk to all the people that were going to be there for the, after hopefully her saying yes, I had them all on my phone as far as a text as a plan B in case she said no. So I could say it's off and that, they can all scatter and not be there and I can go out the window. And I had a driver that night and I told him, if she comes down by herself, take her straight home, don't take her to my place and just drop her off. And so, it was interesting because when we got to the Whitney, which is where I asked her, it was set up that, we rented the whole place out and the people at the door didn't want to let us in. And so we had to bang through the door, which was all set up. And so we get into the door and we go upstairs and they said we can have one drink in the bar upstairs. And I knew where I was going to ask her. The first time I kissed her, I knew if I asked her to marry me, it would be on that couch. And so we go upstairs and we're having a drink at the bar and I opened the door where the room I have all set up. It has roses on the floors. It's all just as beautiful as could be. And I said, hey, look over here. And prior to this, I'd always taken a picture of her on the couch where I'd kissed her the first time. That was my way of setting up that someday I would need to get her in the room. So I was thinking months ahead, or at least months ahead. And I got her into the room and said, hey, look in here. And she starts to walk in the room and I tell her, don't walk on the roses because she had high heels. This is somebody else's room. And so she sat there, I said, go down the couch and I'll take a picture of you. She got on the couch and I took a picture and then I slyly closed the door and somehow I had 2 glasses of wine and I'm not too sure how I had those, but I had the glasses of wine and I sat down on the couch with her, this old springy couch. And we talked there for a little while and she wasn't saying anything and as far as us being there for a while. And, I started to get a little teary-eyed and she says, what's wrong with you? You're like all emotional today. Which quite honestly really pissed me off. And I was thinking, what? So I'm emotional, what's the big deal? But it got me into a position where I was ready to ask her. And I went down on my knee and I pull out the ring.
It was a total surprise to me. I did not expect it. And when he went down on his knee, I saw him pull the ring out. I was in shock because I did not realize that he was actually going to propose.
And when I asked her, she says, well, I got a couple of questions.
And every day he brings me the most beautiful roses. And so when he proposed to me, I did ask him, if I accept this proposal, do all the flowers stop? And I asked him if he would be a good husband, which was really important to me because I'm very much independent and I don't need somebody in my life. I want somebody to enhance my life.
The roses are easy. I can buy them for like $12 at Plum Market. I can get them $11 at this place, and sometimes even have a frequent buyer card where I get a little bit of a discount, and you get some of them for free. I said, so all in all, they're probably $10 a dozen, $10 a day. I can afford that. I'm good. And then finally, she said yes, and that was the happiest day of my life, other than my children being born. And then we stayed in the room for a long time. She still didn't know it was our room. She thought we were in somebody else's room.
I did.
And
I had no idea.
Then we went downstairs and I said, we have to go meet the Japanese for dinner. And so we go downstairs and our children are all there.
While we were sitting up there and he was doing his proposal, he had them all snuck in and they took us to the dining room so we could finish our wine while they used the upper room for the so-called close down of the event. So we went into the dining room and that's where we found all the kids. And so they gave us a dinner and then he suggested we go upstairs for a after-hour drink and I told him we can't do that. They're having an event up there, not realizing that was our event. And when we went back up there to finish our wine, there was all his friends and all of our people had been snuck up the backside and everybody was up there and we had this party till I don't even know how long we stayed there that night. It was late, very late, and it was the best party ever.
Our first date was August 8th. So we're getting married on August 11th. By that time, it'll be just over a year.
We never realized that you could plan an engagement a year out and can't find a venue. I think that you need to be like maybe 3 years planned out to be able to get everything. At least two. One doesn't work. And so after all the venues that we couldn't find and everything was filled, we finally found the Winter Garden. And then not so long ago, before we confirmed our wedding invitations, we found out the Winter Garden wasn't going to work and we didn't have a venue. So we quickly resolved that, and then of course Joe Beccari was right by our side saying that they could handle our wedding party at Joe Muir's. And so we had these great ideas about how we could plan all that. So that all went fine. The next thing was the dress. I'm on my third dress and my third pair of shoes. First dress didn't work. Now it'll be a cocktail dress. Second dress, I hated the dress. Asked my daughter, oh my God, she saw my face. She says, Mom, you hate it. You hate it. So I contracted out a third designer. Now I'm on my third dress and my third pair of shoes. I don't have the dress yet. I sure hope it works.
There's always a plan D.
I don't know what else I'm going to wear. I've used every avenue, and we're like 2.5 weeks away, and I still don't have my dress.
Well, we didn't have that kind of problem with the tuxedos. We were in there.
Well, it's easy
oh, that's
for
not
you
true. We
guys.
did have a couple problems with the tuxedos, but
You guys
for
put
the most
tux
part, it was
on
all
and you
good.
just look good. The dress is so hard. Now we're less than 3 weeks away from the wedding. It's awful close.
The ceremony and the party for me is all about looking to my left when I'm up front and seeing Deborah walk down the aisle. That's all. The whole ceremony will be defined by that one moment.
And I have to do that walk. I have everybody already on notice to get me up there. I have to make that walk.
We have security just in case. The 2 security guards will carry her up if need be, but so she'll make the walk as long as we can
And
get her
it's going to be a long walk. He opened up all the ballrooms, so that's a long walk.
You'll make it.
I hope I like my dress. Vegas? Maybe? Everybody else has the party and we just go to Vegas.
Oh, something like that. We're going to go to Lanai for a couple of nights, then we're going to go to Hana for a couple of nights, and she's recently taken up golf, so we're going to, golf a couple of times too.
Should we talk about you knocking me out of the golf cart, or should we leave that out of there?
You falling out of the
He
golf
knocked me
cart.
out of the golf cart. Okay, we'll leave that out of it. He's teaching me to golf. We had one rough day.
Small golf accident.
He was driving like a maniac, and it had just had a rainstorm, and so he flies down a hill, not on a path, down in the grass, and the golf cart just goes like completely crazy and throws me like right out of the golf cart.
Okay, so what really happened was it was raining. We went down a steep embankment, and she had her arm linked in me because it was going down a steep embankment. Then all of a sudden the golf cart does 180 degrees, and as it does that, it throws her out of the cart and down onto the ground. And it's lucky that she works out because she's strong and not brittle and frail like you would think
Otherwise,
she'd
I would
be.
have been in pieces. I had a bad throw.
But she got up, and the good news is she got up. The bad news is she got up and looked at me.
That will be the last time he drives a golf cart like that. Our agreement now is before we leave with the golf cart, he's going to drive normal on the paths.
Without
slow.
rain.
There's a list of rules now. I have to say, if I have one person, well, 2. My mom, who's always been there for me through a lot of the tragedy and rebuilding of my life, and my daughter, who have been there for me, and they're very important people in my life. And I hope that both of them have a great experience this day. And I am so glad that they're both in my life.
Without a doubt. And I have both my daughters and my son that are the pillars of my life. And the great thing is they all love Deborah. Even my grandson loves Deborah. And so it's been such an easy merge of our families. It's been incredible because you hear about all those stories about somebody doesn't like somebody, and they've all made it very easy on us, and I thank them for that.
My son-in-law is walking me up the aisle, and I'm so grateful. He's great with my daughter. He's a great guy. I love my son-in-law, and I'm lucky enough to have my brothers with me that day as well. And it's just going to be a great experience. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I have my son who's going to be my best man, which is just for me an incredible experience. And I have my best friend in the world, Jeff Christian, who's going to be there, backup for whatever we need. And it's just to have my daughters in the wedding and my son-in-laws. It's just for somebody getting married in their 50s, it's an incredible experience. Weddings are kind of a pain at times for people coming to them. You know, you have to put a lot of time and energy, but we do appreciate everybody coming. Some have come across the country, some have come from around the corner, but we only invited people that we wanted there. We didn't invite anybody just to invite them. And so you're all here because we love you and we wanted you to share in our day.
I look forward to a lot of years ahead. I hope that we have a lot of good years and a lot of good experiences, because we're just going to be starting off our new life together in less than 3 weeks.
19 and a half days. Who's counting though?
I know.